Good evening and welcome to the April 22nd, 2024 Board of Education meeting. At this time, we will reconvene to regular session, and I'd ask Mrs. Troublefield to call roll, please.
Mrs. Briggs,
Here.
Mr. Cathell,
Here.
Dr. Hattier,
Here.
Mrs. Klein, Mr. Neal, Mr. Peden,
Here.
Mrs. Pryor,
Here.
Dr. Statler,
Here.
Mrs. Taylor,
Here.
Mrs. Wright.
Here. We do have a quorum. 3.02, I'd ask for a motion to approve the agenda for tonight's meeting.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. And now if we would all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and the presentation of colors.
Center, face. Forward, march.
You may be seated. Three point oh four, student government report.
Good evening. My name is Olivia Marzullo, and I'm the Sussex Central Senior Class and Executive Student Council Treasurer. I would like to take just a few minutes to report on the upcoming events for Sussex Central. First, I would like to share that our spring sports teams are having great seasons so far, and I'd like to give a special shout out to the SC golf team and coaches. They have been putting up some of the best scores since 2009. In addition to the full sports schedules, SC is gearing up for many end-of-the-year events. The prom committee has been busy planning a night under the stars. The prom is scheduled for Saturday, May 4th, and will be held at the Deltec Owens campus. Senior awards will be held on Friday, May 17th. After the ceremony, students will receive their cap and gown and will then enjoy a senior luncheon. The class of 2024 is also planning a senior class trip to Hershey Park on May 23rd. The class will then participate in the first ever Senior Sunset on May 29th to reflect on their accomplishments and look forward to the new beginnings. Lastly, it is important to note that the class of 2024 graduation ceremony had a date change and will now be held on Saturday, June 1st at 10 a.m. Each graduate will receive 8 admission tickets. I'd also like to thank the board for allowing me the opportunity to provide the student body updates throughout the year. Thank you.
I'd entertain a motion at this time for 3.05, the approval of the board meeting minutes for March the 21st, as well as the approval of the executive session minutes of March the 21st.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is unanimous. 3.07, approval of the regular meeting minutes for March the 25th, as well as the executive session minutes for March the 25th.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is unanimous. 4.01 is public comment, and I don't believe we had anyone to sign up. We will move on to new business. 5.01, school choice applications for 2024 through 2025.
Good evening, everyone. On your board docs this evening, you will see a total of 13 school choice applications. We are asking to accept 11 of those and decline 2 due to discipline.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That is unanimous.
Thank you.
5.02, Sussex Central High School football donation.
Hello, everybody. So we would like to publicly thank Mr. Craig Robertson. He lives in Canada, so he could not be here with us tonight for this recognition, but he donated a $10,000 check to Sussex Central High School football. So I got some background information just real quick. Mr. Wells, I talked to Coach Wells today. He said he's the best football manager Sussex Central ever had. He did this from the late 90s to the early 2000s. So we thank Mr. Robertson for his very kind donation to our program.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's good.
5.03, facility assessment tool, repair and maintenance plan. Mr. Dooley?
Good evening.
Good evening.
At last month's school board meeting, I presented a brief history of this new facility assessment tool and maintenance plan program. I also discussed the short time frame for completion and board approval. To summarize from last month, this plan was rolled out by the Department of Education earlier this year with a deadline for submission of May 1st. We presented the lengthy individual school assessments at last month's board meeting and noted that we were preparing the maintenance plan portion of the effort. Tonight, I am presenting the maintenance plan to this school board and seeking approval for the facility assessments and maintenance plan. Let's review the prepared plan. In your board docs, you will find the maintenance plan and an accompanying maintenance plan addendum. Unlike the facility assessments forms, the Department of Education did not provide a format for the maintenance plan. However, upon inquiry, we were told that they were looking for a simple spreadsheet showing a 3-year time frame which lists funding sources and areas of focus. This is how we proceeded. The maintenance plan flows like a typical financial spreadsheet wherein funding revenues are totaled, from which are subtracted expense items, thus yielding the unused portion of funds which carry over to the subsequent fiscal year. You can see that the funding sources are our major cap monies, as well as our local discretionary maintenance funds. Plus, for next year, we also have some security grant to utilize as well. The expense items are based on previous year's expenditures, the facility assessment categories, and our prioritization of individual school needs. The maintenance plan addendum chart shows a categorized breakdown of priority areas, schools, and plan years. Note also, Specialist Dee Girolamo and I will be getting around to perform annual school walkthrough assessments and the chiefs and principals in the next quarter, which will help further refine our maintenance priorities. Like I did with the facility assessment spreadsheets, I would like to express my gratitude for the numerous Indian River School District staff members who contributed to the preparation of this maintenance plan. So
Okay,
I'll pause here for a brief moment to see if there are any questions on any of the board doc attachments for this topic?
I do. I'm noticing that you're predicting 300,000 less, we'll call it 200 and some for 2026, and almost 400,000 less for 2027. How did you guys get that, considering what's happening in the market?
So typically, the way minor cap funds go is there's a 3-year expenditure of those. So we'll use the oldest year, then the year 2 and year 3. We're done with the year 1 funds. So we're on the 220, at the top, you see the 2023 and 2024 funds, which equals the 1.6 million. That's previous years. To that would then be added the minor cap maintenance and security grant funds, and then subtracted out the expenses, which yields that remainder amount. Then, that's the 1.5 at the bottom. You take that and you add the minor cap and the maintenance to the following year. But the expense items will change depending on the school needs from year to year. So it's the 3 columns for year 2025, 2026, and 2027. You can see those figures aren't exactly the same, that were rated on the different priorities at the different schools. So that's why the remainder funds, even though we use the same minor cap and maintenance amounts at the top, the expense items are actually different, so you're going to get different remainders year to year.
Okay, I don't recall them going down over the years, but that's okay. And I'm also, when you say security funds in there, because you do have a safety and security of, 50, 25, and then 10, are you talking about the monies that we get for security that would be used for changing doors, windows, and things like that?
Yes, so year 1, or next year, and the current year.
So you're actually combining things with minor cap and other things, it's not straight minor cap.
Correct. So the security.
In that case, it might work. Okay.
The security grant fund's just for the current year and into next year, but then we're going to be doing safety and security items. We'll just be doing them out of
Right,
maintenance or minor cap.
don't get me wrong here, I thank you for what you've done, okay, but for me, apparently, when they went to this new program, they are lumping a lot of things together under the rubric or term repair and maintenance, rather than strictly minor cap. They're actually combining monies, which we normally would not view in that way, or at least I wouldn't anyway. I would look at it as minor cap. I look at our security funds in a different way, and since they come out of different budgets. Okay, so apparently the state's lumping all this together for the purposes of what you're doing. That's going to be a rethink for the board.
It is accurate how you're describing it, yes.
Okay, so
when the-
basically, we're facing a rethink then in terms of how things are doing.
Yes, this is, if I could just interject.
Good.
This is brand new from the state. All districts are doing it, same time frame, same
Yep.
spreadsheet. There may be some adjustments after this first year. We had hoped that we could extend this a little bit, and we asked the state that. We were not able to. So per code, we needed to use the spreadsheet, get the information as best we could this year. I think there will be some refinement moving forward, but in the short time frame in which we had to complete this task, I think you did a remarkable job, Mr. Dooley and the school custodians. And then so looking at it from the monetary perspective, I understand what you're saying as well, but it is a rethink. You are correct. in
Right,
that.
because I know the security money we have, that basically came from referendum, okay? And that referendum money has to go to only security. But other than that, we're not going to be able to view this to see where our minor cap money is. The state now going to give us this money in one lump, or are they going to keep giving it to us in 3 different piles? In which case, they've asked for a couple different things. Or is it as usual, the state doesn't know what it's doing?
I see Mrs. Smith is going to add some insight for us.
Uh-oh,
And join the party.
look who just popped up.
The security grant that we're referencing here is the state safety and security grant. That's the grant that we got in, I think it was 19 and 20, stopped
Okay.
with COVID, and then I believe it was 2 years ago through the legislation, they created a fund for safety and security. So it appears that we will receive those funds every year, an allocation. What's in the governor's recommended budget this year for FY '25 is about the same funding line amount. So I think it was about 700 and some thousand we got this year, FY '24. We anticipate we'll get around about that in FY '25 as well. So this is not the referendum safety
It's
and
not.
security money, it's the state. Yes.
Okay.
The vast majority of that referendum safety and security money goes to constable salaries and SRO payments.
Got it. Okay, so that's going to change the way we use our own referendum money then as well, isn't it?
Not necessarily. The only way I see that changing is if the bill to give us units for SROs and constables passes. Then that, if the state's paying a portion of those salaries, then that would free up the referendum money to do additional projects. But that's all pending the
And
passage
the
of
minor cap
legislation.
money that we're getting for this year, is that more or less than last?
Off the top of my head, I don't remember. It's close. It doesn't vary much. Now, with I'm digressing a little bit, but with the February 1st mid-year unit count numbers, we did end up the fourth largest district in the state. We were fifth. We were battling with Brandywine. So I would expect, all things being equal, to get a little bit more minor cap money since our units have increased. But
Okay, thank you for
I
the
can't guarantee that.
clarification, because I'm, the one thing with the way state uses the words and security funds and all that kind of stuff, it can very easily overlap, and then you're trying to decide which pot you're taking it out of.
correct. And we're
You guys
unique.
know I confuse easy, okay?
We are unique with that referendum pot of money. Not every district's going to have that. So
I agree.
I know we,
That's why I was
Interchange
curious
the
about
word.
it, so, okay, thank you.
you're welcome.
Thanks, Tim.
All righty. And I agree, you guys did a very nice job in a very short time period, because this is a large district and it ain't easy.
It was a lot of work, so.
And I know you're including air filters in there too, right?
Yes, under HVAC, which is quite a high dollar item. So.
Got it.
So in summary, the Department of Education is wanting this annually. Obviously, if this program holds, then we will be performing the same process next year, but we'll be in a much better place, having prepared most of the repeatable detailed work this year, and we can change the plan as needed. So pending your approval of it, we will submit our school facility assessments and maintenance plan, as will every other district in the state, and we'll see what Department of Education comes back with.
So
Again, we
moved.
are seeking board approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to accept the plan. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, if we could go back to 502, the donation the $10,000 donation that we had for Sussex Central High School football, it does require board approval. I would entertain a motion at this time to accept it.
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is unanimous. 5.04, Sussex Central High School Unified Flag and Basketball Team.
Hello again. So in Finance Committee, we discussed the possibility of Sussex Central adding a unified flag and basketball team next school year. In the original committee meeting, Dr. Hattier had asked to come back to committee with a budget that explained where the cost would come from. So we did that this past committee meeting, and basically we figured out a way. We have families willing to donate all of the uniforms, so there would be no cost to the district for uniforms. The Special Olympics pays for the cost for all the officials and gives you a $500 startup cost for materials and stuff. They also give you a first line of materials like flags and footballs and basketballs. The only thing that would be out of pocket for Sussex Central would be transportation and our coaches. And we could 100% do that from our current athletic budget. We also shared at the Finance Committee that we were auditing our budget to make sure that each sport was allocating based on kids, getting the same allocation. And so we would just add that into this formula. And the cost of coaches and transportation, we believe we will fund from Sussex Central.
Thank you for giving the extra details. I'm sorry I couldn't be at the last meeting,
No problem.
okay, but I can support this.
Any questions? Concerns or comments? I'd entertain a motion
So
to
moved.
accept. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is unanimous.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
5.05, the Howard T. Ennis pool use.
Thank you, Mrs. Wright. As we discussed in committee meetings, the potential use of the Ennis pool, we do need to table 5.05 at this time. As you may recall, we discussed coming back with a little bit more information regarding fees that would be associated with the pool use.
Do I have a motion to table?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is unanimous. 5.06 says Sussex Central High School change orders, and we don't have any. We go to 5.07, Sussex Central change order notifications.
Hello again. The following 5 change orders are presented for the board notification. They should be on your board docs, as these board notification change orders are below the dollar amounts outlined under the board's procedures for change order approval thresholds. Mr. Brad Callen with Richard Y. Johnson is here to present the change orders individually. Mr. Callen?
Good evening, everyone. In your board docs, I'm not sure what order they're in your pamphlet, but I'll just go through. The first one I have is, let's see, iPad doesn't want to work too great right now. Change order B9, B-01 for BCS. This was just the removal and replacement of existing siding on the existing Sussex Central High School, where we tied in the new theater entrance to the back side of the school. Just something that wasn't shown in the drawings. So that's what that one is for. Let's see, DA Nolt. It's change order B6-02 for an addition of $25,810. And this was just a coordination between the structural steel shop drawings and the roofing plan. The roofing plan did not show the depression as was shown on the structural plan, so we needed to add insulation in 2 areas on the classroom wing on either side of the main entrance. So this was additional insulation. McCary, B12-03. This is a credit of $6,150. We went through some areas, looked at where they were going to spray exposed ceilings. There were some that were not needed at the time, so we were able to realize a credit in that category. Again, McCary, our painter, this one's B12-04. It's a credit of $48,250. We found by going to a different manufacturer for the wall covering, we were able to save quite a bit of money, and we worked with the architect and the interior designers to push that one through. And then last but not least, Deglio Bizzi, our mechanical contractor, B15-06. Again, a credit of $20,800. This is to remove the PVC jacketing on the piping that is located in the ceiling of the cafeteria. PVC jacketing is typically put on pipes to protect them from damage, so it will be more so on the ground where you could run into them or some other damage. But being 30 feet in the air, nothing's going to impact that. So we took a look at that and were able to realize a credit of $20,000 to remove that jacketing. Still performs just as well. It was just a protective jacketing. And I'll be happy to answer any questions on any of those change orders.
As usual, you're saving us money. Thank you.
You're quite welcome.
And it's a norm at this particular point. Okay?
But we want to continue that.
Any other questions or comments?
So moved.
Second.
Good.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? That is unanimous.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. 5.08 is tax release requests. There are 2 of them there. They are not in your folder, but they are on board docs, and I'm not sure if everybody got a chance to look at them, or do we bring it back next month?
I think we bring it back next month so we can,
This is the first time I remember getting one off an iPhone, though. Most people send letters. Okay, this is new and special.
So 5.08, entertain a motion to table it to next month.
So moved.
Yeah, second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is unanimous. Now we will move to old business, 6.01, major capital planning.
thank you, Mrs. Wright. I'll start with Sussex Central High School updates. The west side exterior masonry and metal panels are substantially complete at this time, As you may have noticed coming in today, or if you've traveled by the school during the day, brickwork is underway in the courtyard and in the front of the classroom wing at this time, and it's already been complete on the rear of the building. Structural stud work and sheathing are complete in areas A and C of the classroom wing and are proceeding on the main entrances. Rough-in of the mechanical, electrical, and ductwork continues in areas D and are also underway in areas C and B of our classroom wing. The mechanical and electrical equipment room work is also underway. Interior metal studs are being installed in the classroom wing on the floors. Drywall installation is substantially complete in area E and is moved into area D. Painting is well underway in the hallways and in the classrooms. Roofing at the gym is complete, and classroom wing roofing is 40% complete at this time. And lastly, our executive group continues to meet with RYJ and our architects to explore cost-saving construction alternates and project obstacles that may hinder our progress. So happy to answer any questions. We did meet very recently and toured the building. Things are really moving along well.
Okay. 6102, Howard T. Ennis.
Yes, the greenhouse electric work is ongoing and anticipated completion is still expected this month. The sewage lift station parts arrived and that work has been completed.
Any questions, concerns, or comments?
I would like to add that we do continue to work with Artesian Water Company. We discussed this at our most recent meeting. IRSD has amendments to the draft asset transfer agreement. IRSD is consulting with our team currently with regards to various details of the project, including the transfer agreement, meter pit reconfiguration, and process flow diagram. So we have sent that amendment to our attorney, and I'm awaiting his comments back.
6103, GW Carver consent update. Dr. Thurgood.
Hi, good evening. We had our Community Advisory Board meeting that was held in person on April 18th, again at Howard T. Ennis. Mr. Den shared that he's currently writing his 6-month report, which is due to the judge come May. The board and the district team engaged in productive and positive discussions about cultural awareness and professional development. And the next Carver check-in meeting is scheduled for tomorrow with Mr. Den. Any questions? Have a good evening.
Thank you. Committee reports, 7.01, buildings and ground. Dr. Hedier.
Yes, I was unable to make the Buildings and Grounds meetings due to a previous engagement, so I'm going to ask Mr. Dooley to cover the appropriate details since he was there. Thank you, Mr. Dooley.
So on behalf of Dr. Hedier, who normally presents the committee meeting minutes, it is my privilege to briefly outline the minutes tonight. Please feel free to stop me and ask me questions as I go along. Following open and adoption of the previous committee meeting minutes, an update was provided which covered the 2 major capital improvements projects, what was just mirrored by Dr. Owens earlier tonight. There are no change orders for Howard T. Ennis, nor will there be, with the exception of the final project closeout change order. Right? The 5 change orders for the Sussex Central High School project were presented a minute ago with no objections and were approved by the board. Under new business, Buildings and Grounds Specialist Mr. Steve DiGirolamo presented the monthly work order metrics and responded to inquiries. An update on the cooling tower replacement effort was provided as well. The first 4 schools are wrapping up, and tower work at Georgetown Elementary and the Phillips Shaw schools will be commencing next. An update on the Artesian water system negotiations and discussions for Howard T. Ennis and the Sussex Central High School was also provided and was also covered a minute ago by Dr. Owens. I presented the maintenance plan portion of the facility assessments effort to no objection, which we covered previously tonight as well. Lastly, the previously approved sunshades at North Georgetown and Long Neck Elementary Schools continue to be pursued by the schools and the snack program. Under new business, I reviewed 10 new business items, all of which are covered in the meeting minutes. Highlighting a few, we are looking to replace our oldest and failing large maintenance equipment items as part of a process which will take place over time. Also, we are making changes to our floor program to save cost and labor time while raising the quality level. Also, we presented an overview of parking and traffic issues at George W. Carver Early Learning Center and discussed a few short, medium, and long-term scenarios, including a short-term plan which was already implemented and provided relief. Security grant, door grant, water fountain replacement grant, energy savings projects, and the Indian River High School water supply piping were a few of the other new business items presented. The May committee meeting was scheduled, and the meeting was adjourned. Are there any questions or comments from the board at this time?
Thank you. 7.02, comprehensive school safety. Mr. Capel?
Thank you, Mrs. Wright. Just one quick update on a drill that we conducted. So on Monday, April 15th, SDSA conducted an off-site evacuation drill to the Selbyville Fire Department. Drill lasted about 30 minutes. Drill was very well planned by SDSA administration as teachers and students reacted to the drill in a positive and well-organized manner. Participating supports included Selbyville Police Department, members from the Delaware State Fire Police, Selbyville Fire Department, and staff from the Indian River Educational Complex. I just want to say thank you to the administration that put that drill together. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. 7.03, finance. Dr. Hattier?
Thank you, Tammy. Again, I was unable to attend due to a previous commitment.
Okay, so at our committee meeting, we discussed the unified flag football and basketball teams at Sussex Central that was already on the agenda tonight, the Red Cross lifeguarding courses at Ennis that we will bring back hopefully next month after it goes through committee. We discussed the metal detectors we want to purchase for next year's school events. We'll be purchasing 2 this year with plans to purchase 2 next year with the state safety and security grant. And we also discussed that trained staff would need to be present in order to operate the equipment. We also discussed looking into hiring an architect to prepare a certificate of necessity for the classroom addition / commercial kitchen at Indian River High School's new culinary arts program. Mr. Peden suggested looking into adding additional classrooms to help with capacity issues and allow for additional school choice. I believe the CNs are typically due in August, and if approved by DOE, allows us to go to a major capital improvement referendum for the cost. And we also discussed the need for current expense referendum and combining those two because of increased costs and enrollment. So we're going to continue working on that. Student activity funds were discussed. That's later on our agenda tonight. Same thing with local tax rates and the financial position report in the monthly reports. So I'll be back.
Thank you. 7.0,
Wait, well, sorry, Ms. Smith. How much are the metal detectors going to cost us?
They are just under $24,000 each.
So these are handheld units?
They are portable.
They're more like posts. They're 2 posts that you would walk through.
Oh, really?
Yes.
And portable.
Okay, so 24,000 then is actually not a half bad price.
No.
Nice. Okay, and then one other item, which I'm sorry I was not there for. Again, we received 228 from student requests versus the 90 that we actually have. So what are we doing about that at this point?
I have 3 options to present tonight.
Okay, so it's
And-
later.
Yep,
All right, thank you.
you're welcome.
okay, 7.04, curriculum. Dr. Statler?
Yes, thank you. We discussed the new Indian River High School culinary program, and Dr. Seifert presented a 4-year pathway plan. We currently have about 28 students that are interested in the culinary pathway. Level 1 is fundamentals of culinary arts and hospitality management. Level 2, advanced food prep and hospitality management. Level 3, culinary and the hospitality professional. And then level 4 would be our work-based learning and internships. This is fabulous because students will be able to have opportunities for articulation to places like Delaware Tech, certifications from the National Restaurant Association, and the Serve Safe certifications that are important for this industry, as well as state competitions and just the organizations or clubs that students can belong to. House Bill 301, we have our mental health literacy education that is planned to be implemented for the 24-25 school year, and this is for grades K through 12. We did have a curriculum group that looked at this and vetted it. We are prepared to move forward with the Rethink Ed program and those resources. This does cover all the state mandates. Again, it's been vetted by our group. It's very intuitive, and it includes a parent interaction or outreach platform. So we'll be implementing that, again, for the 24-25 school year. Our next meeting is Monday, May 13th.
Okay, thank you. 7.05 is the DSBA Board of Directors that I serve on. We have a meeting, I believe it's coming up next week or the week after, so I'll report back next month. 7.06, DSBA Legislative, Dr. Hattier.
Same thing. I think our meeting is next week or the week after.
7.07, Special Education Task Force, Dr. Statler.
No report.
Okay. 7.08, Policy.
Thank you. This is right. First reading, we had JECB, which is Children of District Employees who reside out of state. That's a brand-new policy with subsequent procedures. So we took a look at that, and we'll bring that back next month, as well as GBCB, Staff Conduct, Drug and Alcohol-Free Workplace, and IKA-1, Academic Integrity. One policy for second reading, but it was a very large policy, maybe our largest, JG Student Discipline, substantial updates and changes to that. So that is up for a second reading this evening, and we would ask for board action this evening.
Any questions? I would entertain a motion for the second reading.
So moved. Second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is unanimous. 7.09, IREA Representative.
Good evening, Blair Catlin Brown, school social worker, serving as the middle school camp counselor, serving at SDSA, and vice president of teachers for IREA. As the mother of an awesomely autistic child in fifth grade, Gus, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that this month is Autism Acceptance Month. But I say that because 1 in 36 students is identified as autistic, so there's more out there that we don't know. And as the vice president of teachers, I need to point out that in his 6 years at Philip C. Schau, I can genuinely say I think everyone there wanted to help him, but I don't think everyone knew how, and I'm not upset with them for that. That is a failing of their coming up through the system and learning, a failure of us to give them the training, a failure of maybe society for updating autism awareness and education. So I urge this body to keep in mind that probably at least one student in every class is autistic, and they are amazing, and they want to learn, and they bring something unique. Our job now is to make sure the educators, the paras, the nurses, everyone have all the knowledge they need to give them the support that they truly need. And I genuinely believe every educator wants to. They just don't know. And as a mom, I didn't know before I started on this journey of being his mom. And now I'm a little expert if you have any questions. Along those lines, we are excited that next week we are starting our contract negotiations for teachers. That'll be the 1st and the 6th, and then once those are done, we'll roll into the paraprofessionals and the secretaries. We look forward to a collaborative exercise where we can come to an agreement that keeps in mind that educator working conditions truly are student learning conditions. So we hope everything we do in that room will lead to the students having a better experience here in Indian River. Thank you.
Thank you. Superintendent's report, 8.01.
Thank you. In your board docs is my complete report for monthly activities, but I would like to comment on March 27th, we held our annual IRSD Behavioral Health Professional of the Year ceremony where Miss Brittany Lloyd, school nurse at North Georgetown Elementary, was named our IRSD Behavioral Health Professional of the Year. So congratulations to Brittany, and we had a really nice ceremony that evening, and thank you for those of you that were able to join us to highlight our very special staff here within our district.
Okay. 8.02 is district calendar changes.
Thank you. A few changes this evening, the first of which is the change of the last school day. For our board members that may not be aware, we do allow for 5 additional days through the hour process within our schedules, and that allows us to take into account potential weather-related closure days. We did have one weather-related day, but we also had a day that we were closed due to a special election. So of those 5 days, we did use 2, which allows us to bring back the last student day and teacher day so our request this evening is to change the last student day from June 10th, 2024 to June 5th, 2024. And number 2, to change the last classroom breakdown day from June 12th to June 7th, 2024. Third, change the last paraprofessional day from June 11th to June 6th, and to change the remote half-day grades, half-day teacher workday from June 11th to June 6th. And those would require board action this evening.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is unanimous. Financial reports, 9.01, financial summaries for month ending March the 30th, 2024.
Yes, in board docs are the reports dated March 31st, 2024. We were 75% of the way through the fiscal year. We received 93% of total budgeted revenue, 99% of budgeted discretionary revenue, and 100% of budgeted local tax revenue. We received $122,000 in interest in February. We've spent 64% of total budgeted expenses, 73% of total discretionary expenses, and 68% of our budgeted tuition-funded classrooms. And Howard T.N.S. has spent 81% of budgeted expenses.
Any questions? I would entertain a motion to accept.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is unanimous. Motion carried. 9.02, detailed information for month ending March 30th.
For those reports, our student activity funding has an unencumbered balance of approximately $429,000. As discussed in committee, that report has never taken into account the requests that have been approved, so we're going to change that next fiscal year to make that picture a little clearer. ESSER 3, again, expires September 30th of 2024, so this year. We've spent and encumbered $26.5 million and have $4.3 million remaining. The expenses for the rest of that is this year's summer school and the contract payments for the interventionists through the end of the year. We have $11.5 million in federal funds available and are holding approximately $1.3 million in donations and internal accounts.
Any questions? A motion to accept?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is unanimous. 9.04, minor capital improvements for month ending March 30th, 2024.
Skip 9.03.
Yeah, go back to the
Okay.
next one.
For minor cap, we have spent and encumbered approximately $5.3 million and have a balance of approximately $930,000 remaining. And Dr. Hattier, to answer your previous question, our minor cap allocation for FY '24 went down slightly by about $23,000
Okay.
and had gone down about $8,000 the previous year. So it's hovering around 1.6 million.
I think there was a time, though, where it was closer to 1.8 or 1.9, wasn't it? Because that goes back quite a few years at
Yeah,
this
I'm not
point.
sure.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Now on to 9.04, minor capital improvements for month ending March 30th. No, I skipped that one again, didn't I? I want you to.
You just don't want to do minor cap or major
9.03,
cap.
major capital improvements for the month ending March.
For major cap, we paid out 4.9 million in March, but we do need approval for minor cap as well, please.
Yes. Okay, so we did major.
Correct.
Questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is carried. That was.
9.03, so
Now,
we can,
9.03,
we
we just did.
Yes.
9.04,
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
So that's on a mark two. Opposed? That is unanimous. 9.05, student activity funds for spring of 2024.
Yes, so the history of this account is that we take 1 cent of tax collections and put towards student activities. That was from the 2017 local referendum. That account was building up during COVID. There wasn't travel, there was less activities going on, and we have been receiving requests for the past couple of years. We've been very generous with the account. The groups are also required to do fundraising and show us what they're doing. We were generous through COVID with that process because we knew that fundraising had, leveled off and it was hard to get funds. So with that, times are getting back to pre-COVID levels. And with these requests, we received about 33 of them originally. It was about $277,000 worth of requests. It's since been adjusted to about $188,000, but we have $90,000 to provide for spring. We do the meetings in the fall and the spring. So I have a few options on board docs for you. Option 1 is to just allocate everyone their portion of what they've requested. So, whatever the total was of all the requests and just do the allocations based on the request for those groups. Option 2, I looked at moving some of the items to other budgets. So for example, requests from swim team and cheerleading to athletic budgets, some other like meaningful economics, their substitute costs to our normal district substitute budget. Let Me Run had asked for funds for snacks, but Nutrition Services can provide snacks for those students, so we took about half of that for other supplies for them, et cetera, which gets us down to the CTE organizations, band, and robotics that are traveling. When we take out the requests that were not for those organizations, it works out to be about $675 per student that we can give to those groups. So that option is the second option available. Option 3, I took everything out of student activities with the exception of the band trip for Sussex Central and then the CTE and the robotics groups because they are traveling to competitions. So they've earned from some sort of local or state competition the ability to go to the national competitions to compete. So only providing funding to those CTE organizations, robotics, and Sussex Central's band trip gets us to $740 per student. So those are the 3 options that I could come up with. So we're looking for approval for one of the 3.
Okay, if you remove those things that can be removed from the 188,000, how much does that leave in terms of what would be left over if you pull the other groups out?
So to only do the CTE and the robotics and the
No.
band?
In other words, you pulled some out.
Correct.
You pulled the run group over to,
Yep.
okay, and all of that. How much would that take it off the top of 188?
So when I pulled those other groups out, that reduced it by about 48,000, so down to about 140,000. The vast majority of those requests were CTE because the travel is expensive.
That's still 50,000 more than what we have.
Correct.
And if you apportion equally to all of the groups at that point, any idea what that works out to?
So the remaining balance of that, what's remaining after that ends up being about $76,000, which converts to $740 per student for
You mean-
only.
Okay, when you say 740,000 per student, you're talking about how much the student would end up kicking in on their own?
740 would be what the district could give to the person. So everyone's travel expenses are different because some groups are going to Dallas, some are going to DC, some are going, I don't think anyone's going to California this year. There's a lot of Texas. Chicago, for the BPA groups, Florida for TSA.
So if you
How close
cut,
does that put them to what they asked for? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
It's dependent on the group. So for example, let's see, Indian River High School TSA asked for $18,600. That gives them $8,880, and they would have to fundraise $9,700. On the flip side, Selbyville Middle BPA asked for $5,000, and they would get $2,220 and have to fundraise $2,800. So it's all dependent on the group, how much fundraising they had available to them, how many students they're sending. Some groups are sending 22, some are sending 3. It's unfortunately inconsistent.
Got it. No, I understand.
I think that we also discussed, we'd been a little lax on making sure that fundraising had been done up to its potential.
Yes.
But, you know, when we get to it now, like robotics, and I only know robotics from I guess it is in the elementary school, they're already scheduled, I believe, within the next week or two to go. So have they already been able to make the reservations ahead of time with other funds?
So they're making their reservations. Sometimes it's coming out of school donations or PTO donations. We don't take anything out of the student activities account until it's been approved. So in some cases, a school could be floating that group with the school donations that aren't necessarily specific for that group, but the general pot until some of this funding comes through in additional fundraising. It's all dependent on the group. But yes, robotics is traveling to Texas April 25th through May 3rd.
Is there an option that the district recommends?
I would, if I have to pick, I would say the third option because of those groups traveling for competition.
But that cuts a lot of other groups out completely then, doesn't it?
It does. So next best option would be option 2, which gives some of the groups some things, options for other groups, and then the travel. But what we do plan on doing this summer is working with the secondary principals to try to come up with a better plan, to also receive more information from the groups as far as fundraising and where they are and what they're doing and how much money they have. Right. The problem is with some of this is when we have the meetings. So we've had the meetings for spring as early as February, as late as, it was early April this year, I think. No, I'm sorry, it was late March. It was before spring break. But some of the groups have been to their state competitions and know how many students have qualified for national. Some have not. So we're going to try to find the best way to incorporate everyone.
It seems that there's no ultimate decision here that's going to really be a win-win. It seems like the middle option is the happy medium that I'm hearing. As far as
Probably.
your recommendation.
Yeah, and for your information, I've discussed this with other districts as well in my monthly finance directors meeting, and no one had a great answer that we could incorporate. Some districts only pay the hotel room for first and second place winners. I don't know that that's the right answer. You know, it's kind of all over the place. But yeah, happy medium probably would be option 2.
I'd like to make a motion that we adopt option 2 that is being suggested.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor, we have a second. Any questions, concerns, or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is unanimous. I do think we have to stress going into it, because we don't really know how much they did fundraise or what their efforts were to say that going forward in the 24-25 school year, that those things are going to have to be looked at, or the number of people that they're sending is going to need to be reduced.
Right.
We did ask that question at the meeting, and some of them had done some fundraising, some of them had not. All of them stressed that it wasn't easy, which I do understand. You know, we haven't had much luck even raising money at this year for, you know, my Fort Miles stuff. Okay, years past, we could always count on it. This has not been a good year for that. And I feel bad about having to vote for the middle option, but I think in fairness to each individual student that we have, because some of the group needs are so high that voting for each individual kid, child, student, to me anyway, is the one that's fair. And I do apologize to the other groups for that, but it's, to me, it's fairness.
Okay.
Right. Thank you for breaking it down like this, Tammy. I don't envy your job at all, but I appreciate what you've done.
Thank
I
you.
knew this was going to be a booger when we sat there and listened to everybody. Okay.
Move to 9.06, match tax overview.
Okay, so we are reaching the time of year where we have to approve the tax rates for next year. For the tax warrant, it's due to the county, I believe it's the second Thursday in July, to go into the tax bills that will go out in August with the September 30th due date. So next month in committee, I will bring some real numbers, current property assessed values, and what all of this looks like as an estimate, and then we'll update it for June. However, I wanted to go through the tax rates that are available for us. So currently, we have 4 taxes that we collect. First is our current expense tax, so that is operating dollars, local salaries, supplies, electricity, insurance, athletic programs, all of the operational items, including salary that's not covered by the state. That was set by the 2017 referendum. For debt service, in order to borrow money, we have to go to referendum for major capital improvement projects. And with that, then we annually adjust the debt service rate based on our outstanding debt and the principal and interest payments for the next fiscal year. So that will fluctuate. We do have some bonds dropping off over the next few years. So we are anticipating that going down because we've borrowed all the funds that we're going to borrow for the new Sussex Central project. Tuition rate, that provides services and materials, whether it's salary or supplies, for special needs schools and students in our district. Pre-K, complex and intense students, there are also approved tuition programs through DOE. If we are paying for students that go to Sussex Consortium or Delaware School for the Deaf, Academic Challenge is a approved tuition program. So some of that money is going out of the district to those other districts that are servicing the children, and some are staying in for what we are doing in-house. We use our projected expenses for next year to set that rate, and that is approved by the board every year. That doesn't require a referendum. Of the match taxes, minor capital improvements is the only match tax that we are currently collecting. So the state, by the bond bill, every year gives us our share of the allocation amongst the districts. And then we are required to provide our 40% match to get that 60% portion from the state. Once we've collected that, we transfer it in, the state transfers their part. And then we have those funds to spend. That usually happens around November of each year. There are additional match taxes available that we are currently not collecting and, to my knowledge, have never collected. There's a technology rate. It used to be, some of these are considered matches because there used to be a state portion that came with them. The state portion ended, but we're still allowed to collect the local portion. So there's a technology rate that we can use for both personnel and non-personnel costs to support our technology needs. We can purchase, new equipment and supplies with that. Extra time is used to cover costs associated with providing extra instruction or remediation to students. So ESY or maybe tutoring, dollars can come out of those funds. Reading resource teachers, we are allowed to pay for 1 reading position per K-5 school to provide direct reading instruction to students. So that can help cover that local share of salary. Math resource teacher or specialist is available for a math position in 7th and 8th grade buildings. Reading interventionist, we currently have 5, thank you. I wanted to say 4. Teachers funded through the Student Success Block Grant that comes through from the state, but we are allowed to collect a local match for the local salary dollars associated with that. The state tells us which schools that those teachers will be assigned to. Opportunity funding, that's the funding we've received the past few years from the state. This match tax is a bit unique in that for the opportunity grant, the state does cover 100% of the salary for those positions, so the state and local portion, but you are allowed to collect a local match of those funds to help supplement the additional needs for low-income students, English learners, and mental health. And then last but not least, there's a substitute teacher block grant that's relatively new. It's used to employ substitute teachers. However, it has to target needs in schools with populations of 50% or more low-income students, and we do not qualify for that per the state of Delaware. So in a nutshell, those are all of the match tax, or all of the tax categories. And like I said, come the May Finance Committee meeting, we'll start delving more into that. So we can discuss that and go through everything for approval for the tax warrants for next year.
Now, I know we've never gone for those. The irony here is that to be considered a legislative body, you have to be able to raise taxes, which is also something that a legislative body can use to have an opening moment of prayer or silence, which they told us we couldn't do. And philosophically, I would say if they're not going to let us do the first part, the prayer part, then I was never going to vote for any of the others. And that has kind of been the board viewpoint, at least as long as I've been in the board. Of course, the whole board has changed since all that prayer stuff came up years ago. You know, having said that, we are running out of money, alrighty? So I don't know what the board's going to decide to do somewhere down the road, but I just find it a tremendous irony that they give us the legislative power to raise taxes, but we can't have a moment of opening prayer, alrighty? And I think that's something the state is wrong in, but that's just me. And I don't even go to church, okay? But I do believe in the power of prayer and the power of God.
9.07, financial position report.
Yes, this is the quarterly report that we prepare that's due to DOE. This report takes in our discretionary funding line. So from the state, which includes our operational dollars, our energy money, funds that can be used for local salaries, and our local funds. We project out the income between April 1st and June 30th, which generally is just our tax collections for the rest of the year. And then the projected expenses through June 30 for those same accounts. So the projected expenses are coming from a combination of the third quarter of this fiscal year and the fourth quarter of last year to take a look at the spending and what that looked like. What that leaves us with, as far as the state money, we've been discussing all year about deficit spending in energy because energy costs have skyrocketed. The energy supplier that the state was using had filed bankruptcy, so we had to pay Delmarva Power tariffs, and then we have a new vendor whose rates are a little bit lower than the full Delmarva Power tariffs, but they're still expensive, and this is hitting all 19 of us pretty hard. In addition, of course, we are deficit spending, so as we've discussed the past couple of years with the budget, so our current expense balance is projected to be negative before June 30th, which is what also happened last year. We have sufficient funds in reserve to transfer in, but that is moving up as we look forward toward referendum in the future to help cover these increased costs. So with that, the financial position report ends with about 5.6 million projected available balance at June 30.
Is that within the reserve that we need to make it through the summer?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. I'd make a motion that we accept the report.
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Communications, 10.01.
Yes, we have 3 field trips for your consideration this evening. Overnight trip by Indian River High School's TSA, June 25th to July 1 to Orlando, Florida. Overnight trip by Indian River High School's drone team, May 16th to 19th to Fairmount, West Virginia. And finally, overnight field trip by Sussex Central High School HOSA organization, June 25th to 30th to Houston, Texas.
Okay. Any questions? A motion to accept?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is unanimous. Personnel, 11.01. That's the personnel agenda for April the 22nd, 2024. I would entertain a motion to accept it excluding number 120 and 183.
So moved.
I
Second.
have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is unanimous. Now, I would entertain a motion to accept number 120.
So moved.
I have a motion
Second.
and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
Mrs. Stubblefield, will you pull the board?
Mrs. Briggs,
Abstain.
Mr. Cathell,
Yes.
Dr. Hattier,
Yes.
Mr. Peden,
Yes.
Mrs. Pryor,
Yes.
Dr. Statler,
Yes.
Mrs. Taylor,
Yes.
Mrs. Wright,
Yes.
7 yes, 0 no, and 1 abstention.
The motion carries. Then I would entertain a motion to accept number 183.
So moved.
I have a motion, a second,
Second.
and a
Second.
second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
Would you pull the board?
Mrs. Briggs,
Abstain.
Mr. Cathell,
Yes.
Dr. Hattier,
Yes.
Mr. Peden,
Yes.
Mrs. Pryor,
Yes.
Dr. Statler,
Yes.
Mrs. Taylor,
Yes.
Mrs. Wright,
Yes.
7 yes, 0 no, and 1 abstention.
The motion carries by majority. 11.02, the personnel addendum for April 22nd. I'd have entertain a motion to accept excluding number 15 and number 61.
So moved.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is unanimous. Now I would entertain a motion to accept number 15.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain?
Could you pull the board, please?
Mrs. Briggs,
Yes.
Mr. Cathell,
Abstain?
Dr. Hattier,
Yes.
Mr. Peden,
Yes.
Mrs. Pryor,
Yes.
Dr. Statler,
Yes.
Mrs. Taylor,
Yes.
Mrs. Wright,
Yes,
7 yes, 0 no, and 1 abstention.
that passes by majority vote. Now I would entertain a motion to accept number 61.
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
Could you pull the board?
Mrs. Briggs,
Yes.
Mr. Cathell,
Yes.
Dr. Hattier,
Yes.
Mr. Peden,
Abstain.
Mrs. Pryor,
Yes.
Dr. Statler,
Yes.
Mrs. Taylor,
Yes.
Mrs. Wright,
Yes.
7 yes, 0 no's, and 1 abstention.
The motion carries by majority vote. 11.04 is just notification of retirements. There's no action for that. 12 is public comment. 12.01 is the request for a public comment. We had no one sign up, but we would ask if there's anyone in the audience at this time that would like to come forward. Seeing none, and with nothing else to come before the board, I would entertain an adjournment.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is unanimous. The meeting is adjourned. Jessica, I can't figure out if Jessica can't